What's good? Cool people. You hear that? Water feature over there. Check out today's little read. It's called Exquisite Cadavers by Meena Kandasamy. I'm sure I'm butchering that name. She's an author from where they speak Tamil. But this book, Exquisite Cadavers, is short, but by no means a breeze. It's 100 pages, but check out how the pages are laid out, yo. What you have here are two narratives, side by side. In the middle is the fiction story that she's written, and on the side are the inspirations from her actual life. This book, as she began writing, was actually a response somewhat to how the critics reviewed her previous book, which got, I think, shortlisted or longlisted for some awards, called When I Hit You, or The Portraits of the Writer as a Young Woman, something like that. That book was like autofic, like it was autobiographical, but it was fictitious. Because of that, the critics were just ignoring the fictitious parts and were like using it to peer right into her. And I totally sympathize, you know, I that can be difficult for sure. She wrote this as a response, and the phrase that's used is Lipo, I think I'm pronouncing that wrong maybe. It's like a French term used by like a group of French authors in one of those centuries where they were just experimenting with different forms of writing. And usually there were different restrictions. It's not so here, there's not so much a restriction, it's just a different form. So I'm not sure how accurate that word is, but that's what they use. But anyway, like since there's two stories kind of happening side by side, it's the very first challenge is like, yo, how am I gonna tackle this? I mean, the first is like, how am I supposed to tackle it? But you know, there's no supposed to here. Well, I don't have a precedent for this, so I had to figure out like, how am I gonna tackle this? And at first I was trying to do them both in tandem as much as I could. That wasn't very good. They were just too disjointed for me to catch pretty much anything on the first pass. And I had to read it a couple of times to kind of make sense of both storylines or both narratives to find value in each one. I felt like the inner narrative being primarily like I mean, at first it seemed just like a love story, so a lot of that stuff just went right over my head. And the stuff on the outside seemed very much more politically motivated, and being nonfiction, it focused more on like events and things that were happening that were quantifiable in the world that had, you know, terrible impact. So it just grabbed my attention more. But eventually what I did is, after I read it, I went back and just read the narrative, because I could get a sense of what she was getting at with her own life. But the narrative eluded me. It seemed to go nowhere and have no resolution. Like it's just like really it's just a slice of a married life between a married couple from two different countries living in a third country, and how they view each other. And I felt like this whole book dealt with, the narrative primarily dealt with how people view each other, what they can and can't know about each other. Almost the inability to see past oneself. The man in the story is named Kareem. The woman in the story is named Maya. Kareem is from Tunisia. Maya is from India, I think. They're living in London, and they have like a relationship. They're just two people in a relationship, and it's an up and down thing. The narrative focuses a lot on what they see in each other. Maya sees herself in every movie that she sees, and Kareem is a movie maker. He's in school in London to make films. And you see primarily from Kareem's point of view, kind of in like a third person perspective, I guess omniscient, I don't know. Noticing just how deeply Maya loses herself in fiction, always preoccupied and worried about the worst possible things that could happen, and hoping for the best, seeing bits of herself in the protagonists, or anything that she can see herself in. She lives through there. There's the people who run Kareem's school. They want to see something out of Kareem that represents him in terms of movie making, but it's not really his true passion. I also want to say that the fiction deals with how people see each other in like a person-to-person basis, but the greater context on the outside, the nonfiction, she writes a lot about politically how we dehumanize each other and how people are dehumanized, people that she knows who are disappeared by the Indian government and ostracized in London, Europe, culture, post-Brexit, all those things that like are quantifiable and have like just a real intense weight on the outside. On the inside, there's like a softness to it in the fiction. There's a softness of like an understanding of how unable to really see each other people are. Here's a little bit from Kareem's film proposal. Kareem's proposal to follow the footsteps of John Akomfrah in using archival footage of a World War II film, Tunisian Victory, alongside news clippings of ISIS attacks, is immediately shot down. His other painstakingly researched suggestion to replicate Walid Raad's fictional archives of Lebanon for the 5 decades of brutal dictatorship in Tunisia meets the same fate, as does his suggestion to travel to the poorest suburbs of his country, Duar Hishar, Kasserine, Ibtad Amen, I'm messing that up, were from where ISIS had its highest number of recruits. No. The advisory committee says, we have to discourage you in the interest of your own safety. His well-wishers on the board advised him against pursuing the stream further, concern laced with a warning. Here we have the PREVENT program. We are required to remain vigilant about this sort of thing. The institution is committed to the government's counterterrorism policy. This is part of the student visa requirement. This would require security clearance from the Ministry of Defense. Such a morbid interest in extremism is itself a giveaway, a sign of being attracted to radicalism. We do not need trouble at our doorsteps. I felt like that mirrored the whole issue of making racist jokes at parties. There's no escaping that fear is real, that you might actually be a terrorist. And I think that is where the book is most beautiful. And it took me, a few rereads to get it, but it was worth it, and I enjoy it more and more. I feel like if I was to sit on it and continue reading it, I'd enjoy it more. So I could get a better grasp of all the different ways she's experiencing and relating the soft bigotry in our polite and mixed cultures, which just seems to slam against the realities that she experienced that informed her writing of the story. All the people that she knows that died and were disappeared is mirrored a little bit in the story by at the very end, because I mean nothing really happens except at the very end. Like Kareem's brother gets disappeared by the government, and then they worry about that, and it's a very like internal, heartwarming thing. But like she really lays out in her external nonfiction reflection just how upsetting it really can be in India, how women are treated, how people who aren't Hindu are treated in India. It really sparked an interest in me to read into that more, because it's terrible. And who doesn't want to read about terrible things, right? To tie it back together, for all the great things I have to say about this book, the elephant in the room is that it's a brick wall at the beginning. It is difficult to navigate how to read that book. Yeah, I gave it 2.5. I gave it 2.5 stars. But it's growing on me still, but I have to give it back to the library. And I don't think I'm gonna get a new one. I didn't like it that much, but it was not a bad read. If you can pick it up and read it 2 or 3 times, I'd suggest it. But for being so, difficult, I feel like I don't want to be Mr. Sit on my high horse. You shouldn't have done this. Of course, experiment with the form. Please experiment with the form. Just don't do this again. Never mind. I guess I'm being a jerk about it, but yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like the form so much. I don't think that's a good way to read books. Is all. Alrighty, I'll get at you with the next one when I do it. I guess it could be anything. You see my Goodreads. I have like a million books like up there that are just not moving. They're just gonna be up there until like next December maybe. Who knows? Nah. Gotta give them back to the library. Alright kids, it's been real.